Hi, my name is Ryan. I'm 32 and I live in a quiet suburb just outside Nashville, Tennessee. I work in digital advertising, 9 to 5, coffee fueled meetings, endless Zoom calls. Most days blend into each other. But this story, it split my life clean in two. It started on a rainy Thursday, about 2 years ago. I'd just gotten off work when my best friend Chris texted beer at O'Malley's Need to Talk. We'd been close since college. Chris was the kind of guy everyone liked. Laid back, funny, never let anything get too serious. But that night he walked into the bar looking like he hadn't slept in days. His hair was uncombed, his hoodie damp from the rain, and he barely touched his drink. We talked about sports, his job, usual surface level stuff. Until I pressed. That's when his smile cracked. "It's my mom," he said. "She's not okay. I don't know what to do with her anymore." That's all he said before changing the subject. But something about the way he said it stuck with me. A few days later, he invited me over for dinner. His mom, Rachel, had always been warm and full of energy. She used to make jokes that made everyone at the table laugh until their ribs hurt. But that night when I walked into their house, it felt different. She was sitting in the living room wrapped in a faded shawl, staring out the window like she was watching something only she could see. The TV was on volume low, but she wasn't watching it. Her eyes were red puffy. She looked hollow. When she saw me, she managed a faint smile. "Ryan," she said softly. "Thanks for coming." Chris was in the kitchen clattering dishes just a little too loudly. Avoiding her. Avoiding me. After dinner, Chris left to run an errand. I offered to stay back and help Rachel clean up. She sat down at the kitchen table instead, motioned for me to sit. The house was quiet. Too quiet. Then she whispered, "Can I ask you something?" I nodded. Her voice was barely audible. "Will you take me away from here anywhere? I just... I can't breathe in this house anymore." I froze. Not from fear, but from the weight of her words. Here was a woman I'd known for years as a vibrant presence. Now she sounded like a ghost inside her own home. That night, I couldn't sleep. Her voice kept looping in my head. "I can't breathe in this house anymore." Over the next few weeks, I visited more often. Chris said work was keeping him busy, but I knew he just didn't want to deal with the heaviness settling over his home. Rachel and I talked a lot. Mostly small things at first: recipes, old movies, her favorite books. But sometimes in the quiet moments, she'd trail off mid-sentence and stare at the wall like it held secrets she wasn't ready to say out loud. One evening, after Chris had gone out again, she and I sat on the back porch. The sun was setting. Cicadas buzzed in the distance. She turned to me, her voice steady but fragile. "Do you ever feel like you're living someone else's life, like you just woke up one day, and none of it belongs to you anymore?" I didn't answer. I didn't know how. That's when she reached for my hand. Warm, gentle, but trembling. "I don't want to be alone anymore," she whispered. And just like that, something shifted. Something I didn't see coming. After that night on the porch, things changed. It wasn't dramatic. There was no line crossed. But the air between Rachel and me felt different. Charged. Heavy with everything unspoken. I started stopping by even when Chris didn't invite me. Sometimes just to drop off groceries. Sometimes just to sit with her in silence. She was lonely. Not in the kind of way that asks for attention, but the kind of loneliness that seeps into your bones. The kind that makes a house feel colder even when the thermostat says 72. She never asked me to stay, but she never asked me to leave either. One rainy Tuesday, I brought over her favorite cinnamon bread from that little bakery downtown. She smiled, really smiled for the first time in weeks. "God, I haven't had this in years," she said, tearing into it like a kid. Back when Chris's dad was still around, this used to be Saturday morning tradition. She paused, then quieter, back when life still felt like life. That was the first time she mentioned him, Chris's dad. He'd walked out years ago. No goodbye, no explanation. Just gone. Rachel had raised Chris alone, piecing together a life with duct tape and late-night prayers. She didn't talk about it much, but I could tell the hurt hadn't faded. It had just sunk deeper. One evening after Chris had left town for a 3-day work trip, Rachel called. Her voice trembled. "Ryan, could you come over? Just for a bit." When I arrived, she was sitting on the porch again, wrapped in that same shawl. Rain drizzled against the roof. Her eyes were glassy. "I don't know how much longer I can keep doing this," she said, waking up to silence, "pretending I'm okay so I don't scare my son. I feel like I'm disappearing." I sat beside her, said nothing. "Because what do you say to someone unraveling like that?" She looked at me, then really looked at me, eyes wet but steady. "You ever wonder if your life turned out wrong and you didn't notice until it was too late?" That question hit me harder than I expected, because I had. More than once. She reached for my hand again. This time, I didn't flinch. "I'm tired of being strong," she whispered. That night we didn't talk much. We just sat there, shoulder to shoulder, as the rain fell and the world slowed down. But in that quiet, something was building. Not romance. Not yet. Something messier. Deeper. A tether. 3 nights later, Rachel told me a story. One I didn't expect. We were in the kitchen. Only the fridge light on. She leaned against the counter, sipping tea, her voice low and raw. "There was a man years before Chris's father," she said. "I was 19. And I loved him in a way that scared me." She smiled, then shook her head. "He left. Said he couldn't give me the life I deserved. That he was doing me a favor." She turned toward me then, and I believed him. For decades I believed I wasn't worth staying for. I didn't know what to say. So I just stood there. Let her speak. Let her unspool the weight she'd carried for a lifetime. I think I forgot how to ask for anything she said. But right now, I just want someone to see me. Really see me. I did. And it terrified me. Because this wasn't just a broken woman needing comfort. This was someone brave enough to tell the truth. And somewhere in her truth, I saw pieces of mine. When Chris got back from his trip, things got tense. He didn't say anything outright, but I could feel the shift. A pause in his words, a glance that lingered too long, the kind of silence that means more than anything spoken. One afternoon, he cornered me in the kitchen. "Ryan," he said, "can I be honest with you?" I nodded, unsure of what was coming. "I know you've been spending time with my mom. I get it. She needs people right now. And I appreciate that you're there for her. I do." He paused, then added, "It's just sometimes I wonder if I'm enough for her. You know, like maybe I failed her somehow." That hit harder than I expected, because I'd seen Rachel carry so much on her own, decades of weight her son never really noticed. And Chris, he wasn't a bad son. He just didn't know how deep it all went. Didn't see the cracks forming behind the smiles. "I'm not replacing anyone," I said carefully. "I'm just trying to be there when it gets heavy." He nodded, eyes on the floor. "I know. It's just complicated." He walked off, leaving me with that word echoing in my chest. Complicated. That night, Rachel and I sat on the porch again. No rain this time. Just a clear Tennessee sky full of stars. "Chris is starting to notice," I said softly. She nodded, wrapping the shawl tighter around her shoulders. I figured. He's a good boy, but he's still a boy when it comes to feelings. There was no bitterness in her voice, only sadness, a kind of motherly ache that never really goes away. "I don't want to hurt him," I said. "You won't," she replied. "But I think we both know this. Whatever this is, it's real." "Isn't it?" I didn't answer. Because I didn't have the words, and all I had was the lump in my throat and the quiet certainty that she was right. The next day, she sent me a message. "I need to leave, just for a little while. Clear my head. Would you come with me?" I stared at the screen, heart pounding. She wasn't asking for romance. She was asking for escape. For someone who wouldn't ask her to pretend she was fine. I didn't hesitate. "Yes. Tell me when." We packed light, no destination, just 2 overnight bags and a tank full of gas. We left after midnight. The world was sleeping as we crossed the county line, headlights slicing through the dark. No music, just silence and breath, and something building between us neither of us could name. We drove for hours, through hills, past farms, until the city lights faded and the stars took over. We ended up near a quiet lake just before sunrise, pulled over, sat on the hood of my car watching the water ripple like glass. Rachel leaned her head on my shoulder. "Do you think people can start over?" she asked. I thought about it. I think I said sometimes we don't need a new life. Just someone who reminds us we're still alive. She looked at me, then really looked at me, and for the first time in a long time, I saw peace in her eyes. It was fragile, maybe temporary, but it was real. That night, we stayed in a small roadside inn, 2 beds, one shared silence. No lines were crossed. No confessions were made. But I lay awake for hours staring at the ceiling, wondering what would happen if we never went back. We stayed by the lake for 3 days. No plans, no phones, just the quiet sound of wind through trees and the occasional laughter that surprised even us. Rachel started smiling more. Not the polite kind people give out of habit, but real, soft, unguarded smiles, the kind that make you want to protect whatever caused them. We walked in the mornings, talked in the evenings. Sometimes we didn't talk at all. And somehow those silences said the most. On the second night, we sat by a fire pit behind the inn, wrapped in blankets, sipping cheap red wine from paper cups. "I used to dream of this," Rachel said, staring into the flames. "Not the lake, not the wine, just feeling light again." I looked at her. The firelight flickered against her skin, and for the first time, she didn't look like someone barely holding herself together. She looked present. "You're not broken," I said. She smiled gently. "No, but I was forgotten. There's a difference." I felt that in my chest, because I knew what it was like to go unnoticed, to show up for everyone else, but feel like no one would show up for you. We sat there until the fire burned low and the stars blinked above us like they were listening. The next morning, my phone rang. "Chris." I stared at the screen for a long time before answering. "Hey," I said. His voice was tight, urgent. "Ryan, you need to come home. Mom's not okay." I froze. "What happened?" I don't know, man. I found an old journal. Things I never knew. And now I'm scared she's hiding something. She won't talk to me. Just keeps saying she's tired. Please, just come back." I looked at Rachel sitting across from me on the porch, her eyes closed, basking in the morning sun. "Yeah," I said quietly. "We'll come home." The drive back was silent, heavy. Something had shifted again and neither of us could name it. When we pulled into the driveway, Chris was already waiting. His face was pale, his eyes wild with worry. He rushed to Rachel, hugged her tightly. Too tightly. "Mom, I'm sorry. For everything I didn't see. I didn't know it was this bad." Rachel hugged him back, but something in her posture had changed. She looked smaller, like the moment of peace she found by the lake had already started slipping away. That night, I found her sitting alone in the living room. No lights, just the glow from the TV she wasn't watching. I thought it would fix something she said quietly, leaving, laughing again, feeling free. But the second we came back, it all closed in. I sat beside her. "You're not alone in this." She didn't look at me, but I feel like I am. I've felt like that for so long, I don't know how to believe anything else. Her voice cracked. "I'm scared, Ryan, not of dying, but of going through the rest of my life feeling like this." I reached for her hand, held it tight. We sat like that for a long time, 2 people trying to hold the pieces together. And I realized I wasn't just staying for her anymore. I needed this too. In the days that followed, the house was quieter than ever. Chris tried. He brought flowers, cooked dinner, stayed home more often. But he didn't understand the kind of exhaustion Rachel was carrying. He thought effort could erase years of silence, but some things can't be fixed with good intentions. Rachel smiled for him. She always smiled for him. But when he wasn't looking, I saw the weight return. Late one night, she and I sat in the kitchen again, just like we used to. 2 mugs of chamomile tea between us, the clock ticking softly on the wall. "I want to tell him," she said suddenly. I looked up. "Tell him what?" She traced the rim of her mug, her fingers trembling. "Everything. About the night his father left. About how alone I really felt. About the things I almost did when I didn't think I could keep going." I said nothing. Because sometimes Silence is safer than saying the wrong thing. I've carried it for so long, she whispered. This shame, this ache. It never really left. She looked at me, eyes red but clear. I almost ended my life 3 years ago. The words hit me like a wave. I couldn't breathe. She wasn't crying. She didn't need to. The truth sat between us, heavy and cold. I didn't do it because I thought of Chris. I thought he's lost one parent already. I can't let him lose the other. But staying, it didn't mean I healed. It just meant I kept pretending. I reached across the table, took her hand. You're here, I said. And that matters more than anything. She nodded slowly, but her gaze drifted to the window. There's a difference between being alive and feeling alive, Ryan. And sometimes I wonder if I'll ever cross that line again. Later that week, Chris stopped me outside. He looked tired. I don't know how to talk to her, he admitted. She smiles, but it's like she's somewhere else. I hesitated. She's not asking for answers. She just wants to feel seen. He exhaled, frustrated. I wish she'd open up to me the way she does to you. She's trying, I said. But you need to let her be more than your mom. You have to let her be a person. Chris didn't respond, just nodded slowly and walked back inside. That night, Rachel and I watched an old movie in the den. She leaned her head on my shoulder halfway through, whispering, I don't know what this is between us, but it feels like breathing again. I didn't move, didn't speak, because I was afraid words would ruin whatever fragile thread we were walking on. She turned to me and smiled. You gave me something I didn't think I'd feel again, a second chance at something. Then she whispered, promise me one thing, anything, if I fall again, don't let me disappear, pull me back, even if I push you away. I looked her in the eye. I won't let you go. And in that moment, I meant every word. A few weeks later, it happened. Rachel didn't come to the door when I knocked. No text, no light in the window. I let myself in with the spare key, something she'd given me quietly one afternoon, with no explanation. The house was silent. Then I saw her sitting on the bedroom floor, back against the wall, her face pale, her arms wrapped tightly around her knees. She looked up when I stepped in, but didn't speak. I sat beside her gently, not saying a word. Eventually, she whispered, I felt it again today. That edge. The one I almost slipped off before. I didn't ask what triggered it. I didn't need to. I'm so tired of pretending, as she said, even with you. I keep thinking I've climbed out, but it keeps pulling me back. I reached out, took her hand. You don't have to climb alone. She broke then. Not with sobs, but with a soft, shaky breath that sounded like someone finally letting go. That night, I stayed with her. No confessions, no drama, just presence. Just two people, one broken the other, breaking to hold them both together. The next morning, we made a plan. Therapy. Real conversations with Chris. Space to heal, but not in silence anymore. And she kept to it. Slowly, Rachel started to change. It wasn't a miracle. She still had days where the weight came crashing down, but she began to fight for herself. Bit by bit, breath by breath. She opened up to Chris. Told him everything. He cried more than I've ever seen him cry. And for the first time in their lives, they didn't just play mother and son. They saw each other as people, as survivors. Time passed. Rachel found a new rhythm, volunteered at a local women's center, started gardening again, even took a weekend trip with a few friends she hadn't seen in years. We still talk, often. But things are different now. Healthier, stronger, built not on rescue, but on resilience. As for me, I went through something too. Being close to someone's pain changes you. It teaches you that love isn't always neat or romantic. Sometimes love is just showing up, sitting in the dark with someone until they're ready to turn on the light. If you asked me what the story was about, I wouldn't say heartbreak, or tragedy, or forbidden love. I'd say it's about grace and the power of being seen. Rachel didn't need saving. She needed space to speak, and someone who wouldn't flinch when she finally did. If there's one thing I've learned, it's this. The greatest act of love is presence, not fixing, not promising, just being there, especially when it's hardest. She once asked me if people could really start over. Now I know the answer, yes, but not alone.